The Judgment. The Grand Tribunal Chamber of the Galactic Council was a masterpiece of alien engineering. Its walls shimmered with living metals that pulsed with faint, rhythmic light, as if the room itself were alive. Suspended midair at the center of this magnificent chamber was Lina Carter, a human explorer, stripped of her weapons but not her spirit. The cold energy field holding her aloft crackled ominously, a silent reminder of her captor's power. Across from her, seated on a throne of crystalline obsidian, was Prime Sovereign Kalrith of the Onara. His scales shimmered like molten gold under the chamber's light, his eyes narrow and unyielding. Around him, representatives from over 100 alien species sat in silence, their faces, or what passed for faces, grim with anticipation. This was not just a trial, it was a show of dominance. Lina Carter, Kalrith began, his voice a low growl that reverberated through the chamber. You stand accused of violating the sacred laws of the Onaran Dominion. You dared trespass into our sovereign territories under the guise of diplomacy. For your arrogance, you will serve as an example to your kind. Lina, despite the pain evident in her bruised and bloodied face, smirked. Diplomacy, she echoed, her voice hoarse but defiant. We came offering peace. You're the ones who turned it into war. The audience erupted in murmurs, their many voices creating a cacophony of clicks, hisses, and low hums. Kalrith raised a clawed hand, silencing them instantly. Humans, he spat the word like venom. Fragile. Arrogant. You think your primitive adaptability makes you special. But here, in the heart of the galaxy, your kind is nothing more than a fleeting anomaly. Lina's smile didn't waver. You talk a big game, Kalrith, she said, locking eyes with the Sovereign. But here's the thing about humans. We don't break as easily as you think. Kalrith's golden eyes flickered with a moment of hesitation before he stood, his imposing frame towering over her. Begin the extraction, he commanded, his voice slicing through the air like a blade. A series of mechanical arms descended from the chamber's ceiling, their needle-like tips gleaming under the ambient light. The crowd leaned forward, eager to witness the spectacle. This was not merely a punishment, it was a demonstration. They would strip every ounce of pain and defiance from Lina and broadcast it to her people as a warning. The first probe pierced her skin, and her body jolted against the restraints. A gasp escaped her lips, but it wasn't the sound of surrender. She clenched her teeth, refusing to give them the satisfaction of her screams. Fascinating, murmured one of the council scientists, a creature with translucent skin and flickering bioluminescent organs. Her neural activity is unusually high. The human pain threshold is remarkable. Kalrith sneered. Increase the intensity. Let's see how long her defiance lasts. The probes intensified their assault, flooding Lina's nervous system with waves of calculated agony. Her breathing grew ragged, her heartbeat thundered against the monitors, but her eyes never left Kalrith. You're making a mistake, she rasped, her voice barely audible. Kalrith laughed coldly. The only mistake was your kind thinking you could stand against us. For 37 agonizing minutes, Lina endured. Her body writhed, her breaths came in sharp gasps, but she refused to yield. Even as blood trickled from her nose and her strength waned, she met Kalrith's gaze with unflinching determination. Finally, her head slumped forward. The monitors surrounding the chamber flatlined with a shrill, final note. The room fell silent, the air heavy with the weight of her death. It is done, Kalrith declared, his voice triumphant. Let this serve as a message to all who dare challenge. A flicker of light cut him off. The energy field holding Lina's lifeless body began to pulse, faint at first but growing brighter with each passing second. The chamber's ambient hum deepened, resonating like a heartbeat. What is this? Kalrith demanded, his claws digging into the armrests of his throne. Explain. The scientist's bioluminescence flickered erratically. Impossible. There are quantum anomalies surrounding the subject. Her cellular structure is changing. Before Kalrith could respond, Lina's body twitched. Then again. The crowd recoiled as her head slowly lifted, and her eyes opened, glowing with a faint, golden light. "Humans," she said, her voice carrying an eerie resonance that silenced the room. "We don't just survive." Her body levitated within the energy field, her wounds sealing themselves as if time were rewinding. The golden glow intensified, casting shadows across the stunned faces of her captors. "We evolve." The resurrection. The chamber plunged into chaos. The once silent council erupted into a cacophony of alien voices, clicks, hisses, and guttural cries overlapping as panic spread through the assembly. Lina Carter hovered in the center of the chamber, her body glowing with an otherworldly light that pulsed in sync with the deep, resonant hum filling the room. Prime Sovereign Kalrith rose from his throne, his golden scales flickering with unease. "Contain her," he bellowed, his voice cracking through the noise like a whip. "Seal the chamber and neutralize this anomaly." The containment field around Lina flared brighter, but instead of restraining her, it bent and twisted, its energy folding into itself. The probes that had once inflicted so much pain on her now disintegrated, their fragments orbiting her in a glowing, metallic ring. Lina's head tilted slightly, her golden eyes scanning the room, calm yet unnervingly focused. "You thought death was the end," Lina said, her voice reverberating through the chamber. It wasn't just a voice anymore. It was a force, an undeniable presence that seemed to shake the very foundations of the room. "But humans, we don't see death as a finish line. We see it as a challenge." The scientist, a translucent being named Dr. Rillick, frantically tapped at their interface, their luminous body dimming with terror. "Her cellular structure is rewriting itself. She's manipulating the quantum fabric of her body. This is beyond biological comprehension." Kalrith snarled, slamming a clawed fist onto the armrest of his throne. "Enough of this nonsense. Deploy the defense systems." Panels along the chamber walls slid open, revealing arrays of automated weapons. High-energy plasma cannons swiveled into position, targeting Lina with deadly precision. The crowd of alien dignitaries recoiled, retreating to the outer edges of the room. "Fire!" Kalrith commanded. The weapons unleashed a barrage of energy beams, their brilliant streaks of light converging on Lina's hovering form. But instead of striking her, the energy froze midair, suspended like glimmering strands of molten glass. With a flick of her wrist, Lina redirected the energy, weaving it into a spiraling pattern that danced around her. "Is this all you have?" she asked, her voice tinged with amusement. She gestured again, and the energy beams exploded outward, harmlessly dissipating into cascading waves of light that bathed the terrified audience. Kalrith's composure cracked. He turned to his guards, massive, hulking creatures clad in reflective armor. "Subdue her manually," he roared. The guards surged forward, their gravitational boots thudding heavily against the chamber floor. They carried weapons forged from neutron star matter, designed to pierce even the most resilient shields. But as they closed in, Lina raised her hand, and the air seemed to ripple. The guards froze mid-stride, their movements arrested as if time itself had paused for them. Lina tilted her head, studying them with a detached curiosity. "Your weapons, your technology, your strength, they all stem from the belief that you're invincible," she said. Her glowing form descended slightly, her feet hovering just above the ground. "But you've forgotten one thing, humans thrive on proving the impossible wrong." With a wave of her hand, the guards were flung backward, their massive forms skidding across the chamber floor like ragdolls. Their weapons disintegrated into fine dust that shimmered briefly before vanishing entirely. The crowd of dignitaries cowered, their once proud postures reduced to trembling forms. Kalrith stepped forward, his claws trembling despite his efforts to appear composed. "What are you?" he demanded, his voice faltering. "No species has ever defied us like this." Lina turned to him, her golden eyes locking onto his. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the soft hum of the energy surrounding her. "I was just a human," she said softly, her tone carrying an edge of something deeper, something ancient and untouchable. "But now, thanks to you, I've seen what lies beyond. And I've brought it back." Calrith took a step back, his scales rippling in shades of fear. "You can't defy the laws of nature. You're an anomaly, a mistake. We'll find a way to end you." Lina smiled, a slow, knowing smile that sent chills through everyone in the room. "You don't understand yet," she said. "Death isn't the end for humans. It's just the beginning." The lights in the chamber dimmed as the glowing aura around Lina intensified. The air grew colder, and the council members found themselves rooted in place, unable to move. Lina raised her hand, and the walls of the chamber seemed to dissolve, revealing the vastness of space outside. "You've spent eons conquering, suppressing, and controlling," she continued, her voice rising in power. "But humans? We learn. We adapt. And now, we rise." As the stars outside the chamber burned brighter, a ripple of golden energy spread from Lina, passing through every being in the room. It wasn't just light, it was knowledge, a profound understanding of the human spirit. The dignitaries gasped as visions filled their minds, of human resilience, creativity, and determination, forged through countless struggles. Calrith fell to his knees, his arrogance crumbling under the weight of what he had unleashed. "What do you want from us?" he whispered. Lina lowered herself to the ground, the golden glow surrounding her dimming slightly. "I want you to remember," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Remember what humans are capable of. And never make the mistake of underestimating us again." The chamber's walls reformed, the golden energy retreating into Lina's now stabilized form. She stood there, no longer restrained, no longer just a human, but something much more. The council, shaken and silent, stared at her in awe. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council felt something they had long forgotten. Fear. The ripple effect. The Galactic Council's chamber, still recovering from Lina Carter's miraculous resurrection, sat in stunned silence. The hum of residual energy from her transformation lingered in the air, casting an eerie glow across the faces of the assembled dignitaries. Lina stood at the center, her once fragile form now radiating a calm but overwhelming power. Calrith, still on his knees, struggled to reclaim his composure. The weight of her words, "Death isn't the end for humans. It's just the beginning," hung in the air like a prophecy. He forced himself to rise, his golden eyes blazing with defiance. "This display changes nothing," he declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You may have escaped death, but you are still alone. Humanity will crumble under the might of our dominion." Lina turned to face him, her golden gaze piercing. "Alone?" she repeated, her tone carrying a quiet intensity. "Do you really think humans have survived all this time without standing together? We are never alone. And now, neither are you." She raised her hand, palm outstretched, and the faint hum in the chamber swelled into a powerful resonance. The walls flickered, shifting from solid neutronium to transparent energy fields. Beyond, the vast expanse of space unfolded, revealing the Onaran fleet, a massive armada bristling with weapons, their warships poised to obliterate any resistance. Calrith smirked, regaining a fraction of his confidence. "You see, human. Your so-called strength is meaningless against our might." But Lina didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled, a calm, unshakable smile. "You've spent so much time thinking of humans as individuals," she said, her voice steady. "But you don't understand what happens when we unite." She clenched her fist, and the resonance intensified. Across the galaxy, aboard human colonies and ships, something extraordinary began to happen. People who had been isolated, cut off, or stranded suddenly felt a surge of warmth, an inexplicable connection. Through Lina, they could feel each other, their hopes, fears, and determination intertwining. On the human flagship Erebus, Commander Daniel Hayes froze as a golden light enveloped the bridge. "What the hell is this?" he muttered, his crew staring in awe. A voice, unmistakably Lina's, echoed in his mind. "Commander Hayes, this is Lina Carter. I need your help. Humanity needs your help." Daniel's breath caught. "Lina? You're alive?" he asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. "Alive, and something more. I'm sending you the coordinates of the Galactic Council. Bring every ship, every fighter, every ounce of courage humanity has. The galaxy needs to see what we're capable of." The light faded, leaving the crew stunned but resolute. Daniel's hands tightened into fists as he barked orders. "Send the message to all human forces. We're going to show the galaxy what it means to stand together." Back in the chamber, Kalratha's smug expression faltered as alarms blared across the Onaran fleet. A communications officer burst into the room, their reptilian features pale. "Prime Sovereign. Human ships are appearing across the sector. Hundreds of them." Kalrath snarled, his tail lashing with frustration. "Impossible. Their forces are scattered and weak." The officers shook their head. "Not anymore. They're moving as one." Lina stepped forward, her presence commanding. "We've been scattered before. We've been broken, outnumbered, and underestimated. But humans don't fight alone. We stand together, and when we do, we're unstoppable." Kalrath growled, his frustration boiling over. "You think a few ragtag ships can defeat the Onaran fleet? We've crushed countless civilizations before yours." Lina tilted her head, her expression almost pitying. "You've crushed civilizations that played by your rules. Humans make our own." She extended her hand, and the space outside the chamber shimmered. Human ships materialized one by one, their hulls gleaming under the light of distant stars. Each vessel carried the scars of countless battles, but their combined presence was a testament to resilience. The Erebus led the charge, flanked by dozens of frigates, carriers, and fighters. Kalratha's confidence wavered. "Even if you gather your fleet, they're no match for ours." Lina's smile widened, but there was no malice in it, only certainty. "You still don't get it, do you? It's not about numbers or firepower. It's about the will to fight for something greater than ourselves." As she spoke, a ripple of golden energy spread from her, reaching every human ship. It wasn't just a call to arms, it was a connection, binding them together in a shared purpose. Pilots, engineers, and commanders alike felt the surge of unity, their resolve strengthening with each passing moment. Inside the chamber, the council members began to shift uneasily. For the first time, they saw something they had never encountered in their eons of domination, a species that refused to kneel, that turned every setback into strength. The Mistborn delegate, a gaseous entity that rarely spoke, finally broke the silence. "Prime Sovereign, perhaps we should reconsider our position. This phenomenon is unprecedented." Kalrath rounded on them, his eyes blazing. "Reconsider? You would have us bow to primitives?" The Mistborn's form rippled with agitation. "No, Prime Sovereign. I would have us survive." Lina turned her gaze to the council, her expression softening. "This doesn't have to end in destruction. You can choose to stand with us, to build something greater than conquest. The galaxy has room for all of us." Kalrath snarled, his claws scraping against the crystalline floor. "You dare lecture us? We are the masters of this galaxy." Lina met his gaze, unflinching. "Masters of fear and domination, maybe. But you've never mastered hope. And that's what makes humans different. We carry hope, even when everything else is lost." The chamber fell silent again, the tension so thick it was palpable. Outside, the human fleet held its formation, a united front against the Onaran armada. Inside, Lina Carter stood tall, a symbol of defiance, resilience, and the unyielding strength of humanity. Kawratha's fists clenched, his mind racing. For the first time, he wasn't certain of victory. And that terrified him. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with an oppressive tension as the humans' fleet continued to materialize, their ships forming a vast, coordinated armada that blotted out the stars. Lina Carter stood at the heart of the room, her golden aura a stark contrast to the dark and sterile surroundings. She watched Kawrath closely, her calm demeanor masking the storm brewing within her. The Onaran leader clenched his fists, his golden scales rippling in frustration. "You may have gathered your fleet, human," he snarled, his voice dripping with venom. "But you forget, our armada has crushed entire civilizations. Your species is but a flicker of light compared to the firepower we wield." Lina tilted her head slightly, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly calm. "Firepower can destroy," she said. "But unity? That builds something you can never conquer." Kawrath slammed his clawed hand onto the crystalline table before him, his voice rising to a roar. "Enough of this. Command the fleet to engage. I will see this insolence extinguished." In the cold void of space, the Onaran fleet surged forward, their warships gliding in perfect formation. Each ship bristled with weapons, plasma cannons, neutron lances, and gravity missiles, all designed to obliterate anything in their path. The human fleet, still smaller in comparison, held its position, their ships glinting with defiance under the distant light of stars. Aboard the flagship Erebus, Commander Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge, his hands gripping the railing as the Onaran ships advanced. "Incoming enemy fleet," the tactical officer reported, her voice tight with urgency. "They outnumber us 3-1. Daniel exhaled slowly, his resolve hardening. He thought of Lina's words, the connection he had felt when her voice had filled his mind. She wasn't just a survivor, she was a beacon of what humanity could achieve. And now, it was his job to prove her right. "Hold the line," Daniel ordered, his voice steady. "We don't need to win this fight outright. We just need to show them that humanity doesn't back down." The tactical officer hesitated but nodded. "Yes, sir." As the Onaran ships came into range, the void erupted with light. Beams of searing plasma streaked across the expanse, joined by the unmistakable trails of missile exhaust. The human fleet responded in kind, their cannons roaring to life. The clash lit up the darkness, a cosmic ballet of destruction and determination. In the council chamber, the battle was projected on an enormous, holographic display. The assembled dignitaries watched in stunned silence as the humans held their ground, their smaller ships darting nimbly through the onslaught, outmaneuvering the Onaran behemoths. Kawrath sneered. "They're delaying the inevitable. Their ships are weak, their weapons inferior. This resistance is pointless." Lina glanced at the display, her expression thoughtful. "Is that what you see? Inferiority?" She turned back to Kawrath, her eyes blazing. "What I see is ingenuity. Cooperation. Every move they make is in perfect sync. Every pilot knows they're part of something greater." Kawrath laughed, though the sound was strained. "Romanticize it all you like, human. It won't save them." Lina stepped closer to him, her presence radiating an unshakable confidence. "Maybe not. But it's not just about survival anymore. It's about showing you, and everyone else here, what humanity is capable of." Aboard the Onaran flagship Dominion Spear, Admiral Vorek watched the battle unfold with growing frustration. The human fleet wasn't just holding its ground, it was adapting, exploiting gaps in their formation, turning their superior numbers into a liability. "Admiral," a tactical officer hissed, her scaled face pale. "They're targeting our command relays. If this continues..." "I know what they're doing." Vorek snapped, his claws raking the edge of his console. "Send reinforcements to the forward lines. Crush them before they gain any more ground." "Yes, Admiral." The Onaran reinforcements surged into the fray, their combined firepower ripping through the outer edges of the human fleet. Several human ships were obliterated in a blinding cascade of light, their fragments scattering into the void. But instead of retreating, the human fleet responded with a coordinated counterattack. Squadrons of fighters darted through the wreckage, weaving between the enemy ships to deliver precision strikes to vulnerable points. Onaran cruisers, massive and cumbersome, began to falter under the assault. In the chamber, murmurs rippled through the council as the battle tipped precariously back and forth. Representatives exchanged uneasy glances, their once arrogant postures now tinged with uncertainty. The mist-born delegate floated closer to Calrith. Prime Sovereign, this is no longer a demonstration of dominance. This is becoming a costly engagement. Calrith waved them off, his frustration boiling over. Do you doubt the strength of the Onaran Dominion? We will crush them, as we have crushed all who defy us. But even as he spoke, the holographic display showed another Onaran battleship succumbing to a carefully orchestrated attack, its hull splitting apart in a catastrophic explosion. The council chamber fell into a tense silence. Lina turned to the assembled dignitaries, her voice cutting through the stillness. This is what happens when you underestimate humanity. You think of us as fragile, primitive, scattered. But in the face of impossible odds, we come together. And when we do, nothing can break us. Her words lingered in the air, a challenge and a promise. The dignitaries exchanged uneasy looks, their faith in the Onaran fleet wavering. Back on the battlefield, Commander Hayes stood resolute on the bridge of the Erebus. The ship shuddered as another volley of enemy fire struck its shields, but his focus remained unshaken. Status report, he demanded. Shields at 60%, the tactical officer replied. We've lost 2 more frigates, but the enemy formation is weakening. Daniel nodded. Good. Keep pressing the advantage. Let's show them what humanity is made of. As the battle raged on, the Onaran fleet began to falter. For every human ship lost, another rose to take its place, carrying the fight forward with relentless determination. The humans were not just surviving, they were proving that their spirit, their ingenuity, and their unity were forces the Onarans had never anticipated. And in the council chamber, Lina Carter smiled. The tide was turning, and with it, the fate of the galaxy. The battle between the Onaran fleet and the united human armada reached its zenith, a swirling storm of fire and light that illuminated the cold expanse of space. Human ships, though battered and outnumbered, moved with precision and purpose. Their captains and crews fought not for dominance but for survival, and for the hope that humanity's resilience could inspire something greater. Aboard the Onaran flagship Dominion Spear, Admiral Vorek's frustration turned to outright panic. His claws tapped frantically at the command console as he surveyed the battlefield. Why aren't they breaking? He snarled. They should be scattering like prey before a predator. An officer hesitated before replying, their voice trembling. They're adapting, Admiral. Their tactics change with every move we make. It's as if they're anticipating us. Vorek growled, his tail slamming against the deck. Deploy the gravitic annihilators. Tear their fleet apart piece by piece. On the human flagship Erebus, Commander Daniel Hayes stood steady, even as his ship rocked under a barrage of enemy fire. Report, he called over the chaos. Shields down to 30%, the tactical officer shouted. We're detecting a buildup of energy from the enemy flagship, gravitic weapon signatures. If they fire those. Daniel raised a hand, cutting her off. I know what those weapons can do, he said grimly. He looked out at the battlefield, at the countless human lives fighting tooth and nail for their survival. Patch me through to the fleet. A moment later, his voice echoed across the comm channels, clear and resolute. This is Commander Hayes. We've faced impossible odds before, and we've always found a way through. We're not just fighting for ourselves today, we're fighting to show them who we are. Trust your crews, trust your instincts, and trust each other. Let's give them something to remember. In the Galactic Council chamber, the atmosphere grew heavy with tension. The holographic display flickered with the latest developments as the human fleet, though outmatched, began to push back against the Onaran forces. The Mistborn delegate floated closer to Prime Sovereign Kalrith, their gaseous form shifting uneasily. Prime Sovereign, their persistence is unsettling. Perhaps it would be wise to consider negotiations. Kalrith rounded on them, his scales rippling with fury. Negotiations? You would have us grovel before these primitives? The Mistborn's colors dimmed, their voice cautious. Primitives do not adapt so quickly. Primitives do not rally under such odds. This is unprecedented. Lina Carter watched the exchange in silence, her glowing form standing as a beacon of calm amid the growing chaos. She turned to the council, her voice cutting through the tension. You're starting to see it, aren't you? Humanity isn't just another species to conquer. We're something different. Something you can't predict. Kalrith sneered, though the fear behind his eyes betrayed him. Your fleet is still outnumbered. No amount of courage can overcome that. Lina stepped closer, her golden aura intensifying. Courage is only part of the equation, she said, her voice firm but steady. The rest is determination. Innovation. And the unshakable belief that we can always rise, no matter how far we're pushed down. Back on the battlefield, the Onaran fleet unleashed their gravitic annihilators. Massive waves of gravitational energy rippled across the void, distorting space and crushing anything in their path. Several human ships were caught in the initial blast, their hulls collapsing under the immense pressure. On the Erebus, alarms blared as the shockwave approached. Gravitic pulse incoming, the tactical officer shouted. Shields won't hold. Daniel gritted his teeth, his mind racing. He had seconds to act. Divert all power to the forward thrusters, he ordered. We'll ride the wave and use its momentum. The bridge crew exchanged glances, but they trusted their commander. The ship's engines roared to life, propelling the Erebus forward just as the gravitic wave struck. Instead of being torn apart, the ship surged ahead, narrowly avoiding destruction. Damage report? Daniel called. Minimal, sir, came the reply. We're still in the fight. Daniel nodded, his resolve hardening. Good. Let's turn this around. In the council chamber, the display showed the Erebus leading a counterstrike, its coordinated maneuvers inspiring the rest of the human fleet. Squadrons of fighters darted through the chaos, targeting key points on the Onaran ships. One by one, the massive warships began to falter, their formations crumbling under the relentless assault. The Petra delegate, a crystalline being whose body refracted light into shimmering colors, spoke for the first time. Prime Sovereign, the humans have achieved what no other species has managed. They are not merely resisting, they are overcoming. Kalrith snarled, his claws digging into the armrests of his throne. This is a temporary setback. We will crush them. Lina turned to him, her golden eyes piercing. You keep saying that, she said softly, her voice carrying a weight that silenced the room. But deep down, you know the truth. This isn't just a battle for territory or survival. This is a battle for the future. And humanity doesn't lose those. On the battlefield, the human fleet rallied behind the Erebus. Daniel Hayes led his ships in a daring push, breaking through the Onaran lines and targeting their flagship. The once dominant Onaran fleet now found itself on the defensive, their carefully constructed formations unraveling. As the battle raged, a transmission from Lina Carter cut across all channels. Her voice was calm but carried an unshakable authority. To the Onaran Dominion, and to the Galactic Council, this isn't about vengeance. It's about showing you that we belong. Humanity has fought through extinction, despair, and overwhelming odds. We are still here, and we are stronger than ever. The choice is yours, stand with us, or fall trying to stop us. Her words echoed across the battlefield and into the council chamber. The dignitaries sat in stunned silence, their once arrogant certainty shattered. Calrith, trembling with fury, hissed, "She's bluffing. She has to be." But as the holographic display showed the Onaran flagship faltering under the relentless human assault, it became clear, Lina Carter wasn't bluffing. She was changing the galaxy, one battle at a time. The Onaran flagship Dominion spear trembled as explosions rippled through its hull. Sparks flew from shattered consoles, and the bridge was engulfed in chaos. Admiral Vorek clung to his command station, his claws digging into the surface. The once pristine confidence of the Onaran fleet had given way to disorder, their dominance crumbling under the unrelenting human assault. "Admiral, our forward shields are down," a panicked officer reported, their voice trembling. "Human fighters are targeting critical systems." Vorek snarled, slamming a fist onto the console. "Redirect all power to weapons. I want their flagship destroyed, no matter the cost." The officer hesitated, glancing at the damage reports. "Admiral, if we divert power from propulsion." "Do it." Vorek roared, his golden eyes blazing. "We end this now." Aboard the human flagship Erebus, Commander Daniel Hayes stood at the center of the bridge, his presence a beacon of calm amidst the chaos. His crew worked with precision, their movements in perfect harmony as the ship weaved through the battlefield. "Status?" Daniel called. "Enemy flagship is losing structural integrity," the tactical officer reported. "But their main weapons are charging, targeting us." Daniel's jaw tightened as he stared at the holographic display. The Dominion spear loomed like a wounded beast, its massive cannons glowing with ominous energy. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "And bring all remaining weapons to bear. If we go down, we take them with us." The bridge crew exchanged grim glances but nodded. They had seen impossible odds before, and they had learned to trust their commander. In the Galactic Council chamber, the tension was palpable. The dignitaries watched the battle unfold on the enormous holographic display, their once arrogant expressions now replaced with fear and uncertainty. The human fleet had defied every expectation, pushing the Onaran forces to the brink. Prime Sovereign Calrith stood rigid, his claws clenched in frustration. His golden scales, once a symbol of his unshakable authority, now glimmered with unease. "This is a temporary setback," he muttered, more to himself than to the council. "The Onaran Dominion cannot be defeated." Lina Carter, still glowing with golden light, stepped forward, her voice calm but resolute. "The Dominion is already defeated, Calrith. You just can't admit it yet." Calrith whirled on her, his eyes blazing with fury. "You dare mock us? Your fleet is one blast away from annihilation." Lina tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. "Maybe. But humans don't stop just because the odds are against us. If you'd taken the time to understand us instead of trying to crush us, you'd know that by now." On the battlefield, the Erebus surged forward, its remaining weapons targeting the Dominion spear. The two flagships closed the distance, their battered hulls locked in a deadly dance. Human fighters swarmed around the Onaran flagship, their coordinated strikes picking apart its defenses piece by piece. "Commander, enemy flagship's main cannon is at full charge," the tactical officer shouted. Daniel's gaze hardened. "Prepare to fire all remaining torpedoes. Target their primary weapon systems." The ship shuddered as enemy fire raked across its hull. Alarms blared, and the bridge lights flickered, but the crew held their ground. "Sir, we'll be in their firing line in 30 seconds, the tactical officer warned. Daniel exhaled slowly, his voice calm. "We hold the line. We don't flinch." In the council chamber, the display showed the two flagships locked in combat. The mist-born delegate, their gaseous form rippling with unease, turned to Calrith. "Prime Sovereign, this battle is unwinnable." If the humans succeed in destroying your flagship. Silence. Cowrith snapped, his voice trembling with desperation. The Onarans do not retreat. We will lose, Lina interjected, her voice cutting through his rant like a blade. She stepped closer to Cowrith, her golden aura intensifying. You've already lost. The only question is how much more damage you're willing to let your arrogance cause. Cowrith's eyes narrowed, his claws twitching. You think you've won, human? Even if you destroy our flagship, the Dominion will rise again. Lina's gaze softened, almost pitying. Maybe it would have, once. But this isn't just about this battle. It's about showing the galaxy that they don't have to live in fear of you anymore. The Erebus unleashed its final volley of torpedoes, the projectile streaking through the void toward the Dominion spear. The Onaran flagship fired its main cannon in response, a massive beam of energy that tore through space like a raging storm. The torpedoes struck first, detonating against the Dominion spear's primary weapon systems. The flagship shuddered violently, its hull splitting apart as explosions rippled across its surface. The energy beam faltered, dissipating harmlessly into the void. Aboard the Erebus, cheers erupted as the display confirmed the destruction of the Onaran flagship. Daniel Hayes allowed himself a small smile before turning back to his crew. Stay sharp, he ordered. The battle's not over yet. In the council chamber, the holographic display flickered, showing the wreckage of the Dominion spear drifting lifelessly through space. The dignitaries stared in stunned silence, the weight of the moment sinking in. The Petra delegate, their crystalline form refracting light in somber hues, spoke softly. It seems, the humans have done what we thought impossible. Cowrith's claws trembled as he stared at the display, his mind racing. This changes nothing. The Dominion will rebuild. Lina stepped forward, her golden eyes locking onto his. The Dominion won't rebuild, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Because the galaxy won't let it. They've seen your weakness. They've seen what happens when you face something you can't control. Cowrith opened his mouth to retort, but no words came. For the first time in centuries, he felt the weight of defeat. Back on the battlefield, the human fleet regrouped, their ships battered but triumphant. Messages of support and unity poured in from across the galaxy as other species, inspired by humanity's defiance, began to rise against the Onaran Dominion. Aboard the Erebus, Daniel Hayes looked out at the stars, his chest swelling with pride. We did it, he murmured, his voice filled with quiet determination. We showed them who we are. And in the council chamber, Lina Carter stood tall, her golden aura a beacon of hope. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had shown that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they could rise, and inspire others to do the same. A new dawn. The battlefield lay quiet. Where once chaos reigned, the shattered remnants of the Onaran fleet drifted, lifeless hulks silhouetted against the vastness of space. The human fleet, though scarred and diminished, held its formation, their resilience a silent testament to their victory. Across the galaxy, species who had once cowered under the Onaran Dominion now watched with newfound hope. Aboard the Erebus, Commander Daniel Hayes stood at the observation deck, staring out at the wreckage. He took a deep breath, the weight of the moment settling in his chest. The comm system crackled, and Lina Carter's voice, calm and steady, filled the room. You've done it, Daniel, she said. The galaxy is watching, and they see what humanity can do when we stand together. Daniel smiled faintly. We couldn't have done it without you, Lina. Whatever you've become, you gave us the courage to fight. In the Galactic Council chamber, the dignitaries sat in stunned silence. The holographic display, now flickering with static, showed the remnants of the Onaran flagship, its once mighty hull reduced to glowing debris. Prime Sovereign Cowrith slumped in his seat, his golden scales dulled with defeat. This is impossible, he muttered, his voice barely a whisper. No species has ever defied us like this. Lina Carter, still glowing with golden light, stepped forward. Her gaze swept across the chamber, meeting the eyes, or equivalents, of every council member. "It's not impossible," she said. "You've just never faced a species like humanity before." The Mistborn delegate drifted forward, their gaseous form rippling with hesitant curiosity. "Human, what happens now? Do you seek vengeance for what has been done to your kind?" Lina's glow dimmed slightly, her expression softening. "Vengeance? No. That's not who we are. We didn't fight to destroy. We fought to prove that the galaxy can be more than domination and fear. And now, it's up to all of you." The Petra delegate, their crystalline body shimmering with cautious hope, spoke next. "And what do you propose, Lina Carter? How does the galaxy rebuild?" Lina turned, her golden aura spreading across the room like sunlight. "Together. The Onaran Dominion is broken, but the galaxy doesn't need another conqueror. It needs cooperation. Trust. A chance to build something greater than any of us could achieve alone." Kalrith rose unsteadily, his once proud demeanor shattered. You expect us to surrender our power? To let our enemies dictate terms?" Lina's gaze softened, almost pitying. "Your power was built on fear and oppression. That's not strength, it's weakness. But you still have a choice. You can help build a better future, or you can cling to the past and be left behind." Kalritha's claws twitched, his pride warring with the undeniable truth in her words. Finally, he lowered his head. "What would this better future look like?" Lina gestured to the dignitaries, her voice steady. "It starts here. The Galactic Council must become a place of unity, not domination. Each species has something to offer, something to learn. Together, we can create a galaxy where no one lives in fear." The chamber fell silent as her words sank in. One by one, the delegates began to nod, their expressions shifting from doubt to hope. Aboard the Erebus, Daniel Hayes watched as messages poured in from across the galaxy. Species who had suffered under the Onaran Dominion now declared their independence, inspired by humanity's defiance. Others pledged their support, eager to join in rebuilding a fractured galaxy. The calm crackled again, and Lina's voice returned. "It's not over, Daniel. The galaxy is still broken, and there's a lot of work to do. But today we showed them what's possible." Daniel smiled. "And we'll keep showing them. Together." In the days that followed, the Galactic Council was restructured. Lina Carter, her golden glow now a symbol of unity, became a guiding figure, not as a ruler, but as a reminder of what the galaxy could achieve when it stood together. The Onarans, humbled but not eradicated, pledged to work alongside the other species, their once dominant role now one of cooperation. Humanity, once seen as a primitive, scattered race, became a beacon of hope. Their resilience, ingenuity, and unyielding spirit inspired others to rise above their differences and embrace a shared future. Years later, in the heart of the newly unified Galactic Council, a monument stood tall. It depicted a human figure, Lina Carter, surrounded by representations of every species in the galaxy. Beneath it, an inscription read, "In the face of despair, we found hope. In the face of destruction, we chose creation. Together, we are stronger than we could ever be apart." Lina, now more than human but still deeply connected to her roots, stood at the edge of a shimmering lake on a distant world. She gazed at the stars, her golden aura reflecting on the water's surface. For the first time in a long while, she felt at peace. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "Do you think they'll make it?" It was Daniel, his voice warm and familiar as he approached. Lina turned to him, a small smile on her lips. "They already have. The rest is just the journey." Together, they stood in silence, watching the stars, a new dawn rising over a galaxy forever changed.